This is the Chris Abraham Show.
This is the second try. The Chris Abraham Show, Season 10, Episode 2. First one didn't work out. I ended up not having any focus. I was not into it. I was not feeling the vibes, man. We'll see if this one makes it through. If it does, aloha. Today I want to talk about I've written a bunch of Substacks about this with regards to the FDR New Deal. And I was thinking that Donald Trump is extremely obsessed with not invading other countries. And invading other countries is the only reason America is so successful, right? The best business plan ever is to build expensive consumables. And weapons are the best expensive consumables in the entirety of the world for two reasons. One, you get to build stuff and then it explodes. It explodes intentionally, as in bombs, or it explodes unintentionally, as in being blown up. It also, it's really great for development because you don't have to go through any red tape with regards to reclaiming land that you can then redevelop, right? So, I mean, it's just all good. The only cost is lives. But that seems to be acceptable for the hegemon. So I was thinking, since there isn't the ability to... Oh, by the way, the reason why I know this is true is because ICE is being so obstructed by activists that Trump needs to pivot to attacking other countries because he needs to keep the economy going. But before he started doing that, and he's going to do that in a big way, the more people defend illegal aliens from being deported through their bodies and their attacks and their protests, the more Donald Trump is going to invade Venezuela, Nigeria, Syria, Sudan, etc. So Chad, it's Yemen. It's going to be awesome. And so, I mean, Donald Trump is really good at pivoting to make sure the economy works. He's going to do it at any cost. There's two sides to the by any means necessary, right? The left is protecting against Trump by any means necessary, and Donald Trump won't be obstructed like he was in his first term by any means necessary. It's really fun to watch. Anyway, my whole Substack series was about the deportation industrial complex that I then expanded into the deportation or domestic war on terror. I'm going to call it the domestic war on terror versus the global war on terror. And both things, I believe, are spending the $1 trillion of defense budget, etc., somewhere, right? We can't invade Europe yet. We can't invade Russia yet. We can't invade Taiwan yet. We can't invade China yet. So in the meanwhile, we need to invade America, right? So it's pretty easy to do. A majority of Americans support it. They believe that 20 million undocumented between 10 and 40 million undocumented people from around the world, mostly military age men, have flooded into their country because of Biden's open border policy, and that there's probably hundreds of terror cells just waiting to pop up and take America hostage. And so basically the deportation industrial complex is a make war. Sorry. That was, what was it called? That was an intentional mistake. What is the term? Hey, Google, who's the most famous psychoanalyst? Sigmund Freud. And I know it's psychoanalyst, not psychoanalyst. But anyway, it was a Freudian slip. But yeah, so the deportation industrial complex is an FDR works style make work New Deal, but in kind of the what is the term? In the bizarro mirror. You know what I mean? Like the New Deal actually was, if you will, a gentrification project. I mean, I hate to say it, but FDR was doing a nationwide gentrification project. I'm sorry if it feels heterodox and insulting, but I actually need to write about that. That was, um, hey Google, what is the term for when you take over land? The government takes over land in order to do a big project.
On the website justice.gov, they say the federal
Eminent domain. So in many ways, FDR's New Deal was a nationwide eminent domain project in the guise of of modernization and liberalization. I bet you if I dug deep, it would come across as extremely authoritarian and despotic even. And a lot of people accused him of being that way, um, that the works program was Hitler light. It was this kind of American pride thing with with art and social realism and all kinds of it was exactly the same time. It was post World War I, pre World War II. So it kind of, I mean, if we were to diagnose FDR's New Deal, we would say that it was very Hitlerian, just because it had everybody's buy-in. I wonder if we'll ever get to the point where we talk about the people against which the New Deal was weaponized. Anyway, you can't touch the New Deal. The New Deal is a sacred time in America's history. It is seen as effective and active socialism, but it was basically a make works program. And my belief is that in a world where you can't really, Donald Trump is hesitant to invade other countries. He needs to engage the same number of soldiers and military men and uh, defenders of democracy, but not Democrat democracy, but defenders of democracy in terms of imperialism and adventurism. He needs to turn it inward. So the deportation industrial complex is sort of an extension of the private prison system, right? Hey, Google, how much money does the government spend on the private prison system in America?
$3.9 billion. On the website prisonpolicy.org, they say total U.S. government expenses on public prisons and jail.
Total U.S. government expenses on public prisons and jails, 80.7 billion, plus on private prisons and jails, 3.9. So public prisons and jails are $80.7 billion and private prisons and jails are 3.9 billion. So the deportation industrial complex is just an extension of that, right? Where you can, if you need to deport 40 million, 20 million, 5 million, whatever people believe the number to be, you need to create an entire nationwide infrastructure. You need to build an infinite number of detainment centers. You need to hire an infinite number of judges. You have to hire an infinite number of lawyers. You have to hire an infinite number of federal agents. You have to hire an infinite number of FBI agents. You have to hire an infinite number of state police. You have to buy an infinite number of ammunition, an infinite number of sidearms and battle rifles. You need to buy an infinite number of black Suburbans. You have to buy an infinite number of transfer vans and buses. You need to charter an infinite number of commercial airlines and commercial jets or private contract um, commercial airlines. You need to feed and you need to treat and you need to water and hydrate. You need to provide food and lodging. You need to provide medical care. You need to, I mean, it's in infinity system. If you go to places like small prison towns, the entire environment, the entire town is in some way associated with the prison industrial complex. So the deportation industrial complex is a perfect situation. And with this concept of narco terrorists and this concept of cartels, and even the definition of Antifa as a terrorist organization is going to expand it into what I said earlier, which is DWOT. Instead of GWOT, which is Global War on Terror, it'll become DWOT, which is this idea that an infinite number of 9/11 type of terrorists have inculcated and infiltrated into American life and are staging some sort of terrorist event, multiple terrorist event, government takeover, American takeover. And so that was why, while people who wore red hats always knew that Trump wanted to deport all illegal aliens, he mostly spoke about it as in getting the big baddies, getting the criminals, I mean, little did anybody know that when MAGA people say criminals, they mean anybody who's in breach of their legal residence, anybody who's illegal, even if it's administrative. And here's the goal. If you totally militarize it and turn the people against you, you can very quickly start arresting people who are protesting the deportation missions. So um, you can start giving people misdemeanors and felonies, or at least disrupting their lives completely, right? Like this, the entire thing is planned. I mean, it's all part of the counter disruption, right? It's almost like Aikido or Judo or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's using the energy of defiance and protest and going ahead and destroying the lives of those people using their own momentum. So here we go to the works program. Like I said, it requires infinite resources to create an environment where you deport uh, 50 million people who are here illegally. And it is an amazing works program because it's not just ICE people, it's not just detainment centers, it's detainment center guards, it's security systems, it's building, it's contracting, it's security, it's HVAC, it's catering, it's bedding, it's shampoo and conditioner, it's everything. I mean, obviously, if you want to deport 50 million people, there's got to be, you know, 500,000 detainment centers. I don't know. It seems almost incredible, right? So And of course, the intimidation, the trauma, the fear-mongering, the wearing masks, the going in hot, the dressing in JSOC drag, all of that is intentional as well. The the system wants to traumatize people who are here illegally so thoroughly that they consider America to be more of a untenable environment than actually where they're from, so that they will self-deport, even if it's technically only temporary. So all of the overreach, all of the flashbang grenades, all of the door kicking, all of the rappelling from helicopters, all of that is a force multiplier, and all of that is intentionally traumatic delivery. It's delivery of trauma in such a way that people cannot sleep through the night, and they're like, "Screw it, I need to get out of here." And of course, secondarily, the sanctuary cities are kind of like, when the rules change, they are like the best fishing grounds in the entire world, right? Like that's it's like all the criminals telling you where they're going, right? Like it's like back in the day, there in Hawaii there were these places called cities of refuge, and there was these places of refuge, and of course in the old days, Catholic churches used to be places of refuge. However, in the new regime, those places they were only social constructs. Nothing was really legal about any of them, right? In terms of federal government oversight of mayors. I mean, governors maybe, but mayors don't have any when it comes to playing Jun Kempo, when it comes to the force doctrine, there's no way that a mayor can counteract a presidential decree. It might look good for voting, and it might end up turning the tide of the American presidency in 2026 for midterms and 2028. But really, all Donald Trump wants to do is to spend as much of his military industrial budget on internal make work projects so that he can make sure that everybody is going to survive probably what is going to be an economic downturn. And so if he can create New Deal style economies of people who make, primary, secondary, and tertiary money off of giant deportation programs, then there you go. And then, of course, there's the, domestic war on terror. That is the next step, right? Those people are not going to deportation. If you are, that's the funny thing, right? We talk about deportation as an administrative thing, and that is just as simple as grabbing, detaining, deporting. However, if you're literally a member of a gang, if you're a member of a terrorist organization, and if you're a member of a cartel, you're not going to be deported. You're going to be put in Supermax, and Supermax is going to be in wherever that foreign prison is. And there's foreign prisons all over the world, right? I guarantee you. Like I think one person was sent to Africa. I don't know where in Africa, but I assume that these supermax prisons are kind of like boys club or whatever, Like it's totally NIMBY. Like there's no place. Americans don't want supermax prisons in their own country. I mean, honestly, if you think about it, these supermax prisons that are in other countries are similar to the penal colony idea, right? Out of sight, out of mind. If you make sure your supermax prisons aren't domestic, then you don't have to. Well, first of all, you don't get to go ahead and spend money in the country supporting that supermax prison, which is terrible for employment. But like there's the balance, right? Nobody wants a nuclear reactor in their district, and nobody wants a supermax prison either. So it's a real NIMBY thing. America is a series of NIMBY. I mean, California has become the ultimate NIMBY state. California has chased out its oil refineries. It has chased out. It's actually California. If you look at uh, Gavin Newsom, and then you think about the amazing story of um, oh, comment dire, Dorian Gray, the picture of Dorian Gray. If you think about Dorian Gray and you think about California, you think about Gavin Newsom. We can have a funny game here, which is Gavin Newsom is objectively a beautiful man. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful man. That head of hair I would die for. California is objectively a beautiful woman. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It's a beauty I would die for. However, that beauty is at a cost. Every single pollution, poison, and political grenade that California used to be known for in terms of its industrial base has been outsourced to China, right? So the Dorian Gray painting is now in not Beijing, wherever the industrial work is actually done in China. Whoever makes the stuff incurs the carbon footprint and then removes all sin from it, puts it on a container, and then sends it to California where it can be consumed without the carbon footprint, right? So it's a NIMBY project, but is it really NIMBY if it's not only not in your backyard, but not even on your continent, right? That is really what modern globalism is. It's NIMBY writ large, and NIMBY means not in my backyard. So, um, so yeah. But the sad thing is the secondary effect is that California is driving everybody out, right? It's driving Anheuser-Busch. It's driving In-N-Out Burger, HQ. It's driving out Oracle. It's driven out Tesla. It's driven out the oil refineries. It's driven out all kinds of stuff. So we'll see if, and then there's issues with water. And when it comes to things like almonds and so forth, we'll see if California will be a sustainable project. I hope it is. I mean, really, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And if I won the lottery, I'd probably move there. Um, and so yeah, so we'll see what happens. It'll be really interesting to see. Oh, and this goes back to another idea. Forget about domestic war on terror. It is. So I wrote an article in Substack, chrisabraham.substack.com. You can look there. They're all like edited and expanded with help of ChatGPT. The images are ChatGPT prompts, and all the articles are like 30 minutes of me prompting, but the results are all written for me by ChatGPT, and then I re-edit it. And then those really cool podcasts are also super duper lazy. No, Notebook LM Google products. So, I mean, my ideas get across, but it's not me sitting at my typewriter, for 35 hours to come up with a Substack. I basically talk like this to ChatGPT and it comes up with something, which is what I'm going to do here. Like when I post this podcast, I'm going to upload it to um, Microsoft Word Online. They have a transcript tool. I will upload this MP3 to the transcript tool. It'll transcribe everything I said. I will share it to a document. I will download it as PDF, and then I will upload it to Notebook LM, and it'll just do a bunch of stuff for me. So there'll be charts, there'll be infographics, there'll be after this entire episode is done, at the end, I'm going to append probably an hour's worth of Notebook LM like tomfoolery in terms of deep dives and stuff. Hang around if you're interested. And so domestic war on terror. One of the things I wrote in Substack was that every single person we killed during the global war on terror was, and I'm not including, okay, let me do a carve out because the sentence was supposed to be bombastic, but I realized that when George W. Bush and his motley fools conned America into invading Iraq, we did in fact fight actual Iraqi soldiers. However, in general, the entire global war on terror per se was against civilians. And I shared this onto Facebook, and man, I got so many responses because this idea of the hegemon imperialist superpower killing people who are basically freedom fighters who are taking up arms to defend against invaders is just a terrible narrative. It really throws people off the rail. But basically, that's what it is. I mean, we were invading. We were radicalizing. We were calling freedom fighters terrorists and killing them. And people hate that. But it's become a thing, right? It's become a thing. Global War on Terror says that anybody that we call a terrorist is a terrorist. And as a result, you can drone them. So it's just a little step between that and doing that domestically. So the domestic war on terror hasn't really taken off yet, but all you need to do is turn America into enough of an anti-progressive, anti-Antifa, anti-No Kings, um, anti-deportation pressure cooker to make people lose their stuff and start to red dawn against the government. Once they red dawn against their own government and it escalates into fisticuffs and small arms, and the equivalent to the 1970s with the Weather Underground and climate terrorism, like the pressure cooker can get to a point where all you need to do is fool the commies and the lefties and the anarchists and the socialists and the social justice warriors and the climate activists and the academics and the free Palestine people. All you need to do is get them to start firing, and it'll cascade into real world consequences. That's the scary thing about the right. The right really subscribes to the concept of don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes. And so much trigger discipline. I'm always amazed when the ICE people don't mow people down. I'm always surprised and amazed when National Guard guys don't mow people down. I mean, I assume in a world with anger, and partisanship, I assume that every day is exactly like Kent State. And every day, ICE is not like Kent State. I do a Hail Mary, and I do an Our Father. Um, in fact, I should start doing 10 Hail Marys and 10 Our Fathers every time a day does not end with the Kent State. Considering the politics now, I think every day should be a Kent State. I'm surprised. I'm not going to be worried about our government until every day is a Kent State. I like to tell people that I don't worry about terrorism or America's safety um, until America feels like just like a normal day in Tel Aviv or in Jerusalem. Um, Harkening back to when I was 16 and I was 15 or 16, I was supposed to go uh, do an entire summer trip to Barcelona with my high school as an immersive Spanish program. And sometime in the mid 80s, uh, some radical organization decided to blow up discotheques and cafes. I don't remember the details, but until America becomes a place, I'm not even impressed by school shootings. I mean, that's just cherry picking. I do think nobody in America cares at all about inner city black on black gun violence. I mean, those are literal numbers. But I mean the things that affect people on a daily basis. Someone was saying on Facebook that why do we care at all about impoverished criminals on the street when there are billionaires? Uh, it's not about the money. It's about whether I feel safe, whether my shit is safe, whether I can put my car on, park my car on the road, and whether or not on the street, I mean, not on the road, if I can park my car on the street or in a parking lot and it won't be broken into. Nobody cares about the big crimes. People only care about the crimes that personally affect them. If I go on holiday in 2 weeks, am I going to come home to a broken window and my TV gone? Am I going to come out to my car and my catalytic converter is gone? I wonder if a Cadillac has a catalytic converter. Um, and whether or not I'm going to be mugged when I go out to dinner with my partner, or whether or not I'm going to start to have the European problem of pickpocketing, or whether I'm going to have whether I'm going to be carjacked at a four-way stop sign, or whether when I use the Starbucks bathroom and I come out and if my laptop's gone, like that's the only kind of crime that people care about. I don't even think they care about um you know, assault or anything else like that. I mean, I'm talking about domestic assault and sexual violence. I don't think anybody really, I think people only care about smash and grab if they're a store owner, smash and grab or looting if they are working retail. Um, I think that it really is just like quality of life. That's why people don't like homeless people, though they would never admit it. They don't like marijuana use because everything smells like stinky weed, right? Like people tolerate these things because we're all cowards. But at some point, if you can get away with something drastically monstrous by dark of night, uh, that person's going to do it. I remember I'm 6'3" and 300 something pounds. So luckily I've never, oh, and generally armed, but luckily I've never been assaulted. But like throughout the 2000s, every single one of my friends was, was, what is it called? Was mugged by a 12 or 13-year-old kid at the end of a cheap revolver, a Saturday night special, right? That was when you are extremely liberal, you just think that's the cost of life. Like that is in many ways the sacrifice to the sun god in order to keep everything going. So But, you know, I mean, we don't live in a proportional society, right? Like if you do that to someone who's armed, they're going to probably try to shoot you in center mass, right? So, I mean, it depends on where you live and so forth. But back to domestic war on terror, that quite presumably might be a thing. But I'm not going to be impressed until every day is like Kent State. Um, until then, I'm super impressed as to the trigger discipline of these. Like, for example, you know, there are, whenever I think about the relationship between American law and order enforcement and the people who are like, all cops are bastards, bootlicker, 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 fascist, fascist. I think of the big yellow lab who is endlessly willing to suffer as all the babies of the family pull its ears, pull its tails, pull his tail, he jumps on top of it, you know, and so forth. It's only the irony in America is the only reason Antifa and BLM and protesters and looters and so forth, the only reason they can act out mostly safely is because of the benevolence and restraint of a highly militarized and trained superior force. The ratio's not good. Hey, Google, what is the ratio of Americans to law enforcement?
On the website ucr.fbi.
In 2019, the average number of full-time law enforcement officers in the nation's cities was 2.3 per 1,000 residents. So there's only 2.3 all cops are bastards for every 1,000 residents. So, I mean, if you were to start shooting, you could quickly be overwhelmed by superior numbers, if not by superior weapons. I do not think you can call in air support if you are a domestic fascist brown shirt jackbooted thug ICE officer. I don't think you can get onto your prick 77 and a uh call in an F4 to do a strafing run or a napalm drop. I don't think you can call in an A10 Warthog yet domestically. We'll see what happens. And I also like to think, in terms of restraint and benevolence, there are 400 plus million, mostly unused, firearms in private hands every day. And that kind of goes to the people who own those guns have a very strong trigger discipline that says don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes. Hey, Google, how many rounds of ammunition are privately owned in the United States?
On the website flora.com, they say
Americans buy between 8 and 15 billion rounds of ammunition annually. There are 80 to 100 million gun owners in the country. So if you assume possession based on sales alone, the average American possesses between 80 and 150 rounds each. That makes sense. But when I was going to the range, I would buy 1,000 rounds of reloads off of the internet routinely. Right? Let's see. I have 10 17-round magazines and 3 15-round magazines. So that would be 170. Yeah, 200 rounds. I have 200 rounds of 9mm. I have hundreds of rounds of 22. But yeah, I think I have about 200 rounds of jacketed hollow points in 10 17-round magazines and 3 15-round magazines. And that's it. I do not have thousands of rounds. So I'm a perfect exemplar of that. Anyway, domestic war on terror. There probably are going to be loads of false flags, false flag events. Really, honestly, nobody actually does anything. Nobody actually does anything. And if there's any big event like January 6th, it's always going to be fomented by a by a color revolution agenda outfit. It's either going to be Fed or intelligence or foreign or regime based. At some point, all those people are going to be like, "Show me the whites of your eyes already." And who knows? I mean, like I said, I'm pretty tolerant. If like there aren't multiple discos and cafes blown up in the United States on a weekly basis, I'm gonna be like, okay, we're good. America's fine. But we have such a low tolerance that we need to go out of our way to be like, oh my God, look at all the gun deaths. I mean, if you take away suicides, which are personal choice issues, you're left with, hey, Google, if you take away suicides, how many gun deaths are there a year?
Sorry, I don't understand.
Let me see.
Take your time.
If you take away all gun suicides, how many gun deaths are there a year?
Sure thing. In a nutshell, if we look at the most recent numbers, around 2023, there were roughly 46,700 gun related deaths in the US, and about 58% of those were suicides. That means once you remove suicides from the equation, the number of annual gun deaths drops significantly, though the exact 2024 figures aren't fully in yet. So it's a pretty big chunk of the total, and it really changes the picture.
Do the math for me.
Absolutely. Let's do a bit of number crunching alchemy. So if we take roughly 46,700 total gun deaths, and remember about 58% are suicides, that's around 27,000 or so suicides. Subtract that from the total, and you've got about 19,700 non-suicide gun deaths per year, give or take. So that's the tally when you take suicides out of the equation.
All right, so reduce that into the whole concept of rate, because you can go ahead and hide a bunch of really awful numbers if you say what the rate is per our 400 million people in America. What is the rate of gun deaths in America?
Absolutely. Let's put on our number whisperer hat. If we're talking rates, you're right. Looking at raw totals alone can hide the roast tale. So let's take that roughly 19,700 non-suicide gun deaths per year and divide by about 400 million people in the US. That gives you a rate of roughly 0.049% per year, or about 4.9 non-suicide gun deaths per 100,000 people annually. In other words, when you put it in terms of population rate, it's a few per 100,000 people each year, which definitely paints a more nuanced picture than the big raw numbers alone.
All right, out of that 19,700 non-suicide gun deaths per year, how many were murder?
In 2024, out of roughly 19,700 non-suicide gun deaths, about 79% were homicides. That works out to around 13,100 homicides for the year, which comes down to about 35 gun-related murders each day on average.
And what is the rate?
All right, let's turn that into a nice, tidy rate. If we take those roughly 13,100 homicides and spread them over a population of about 400 million, you end up with a rate of about 3.3 gun homicides per 100,000 people per year. So that's the ballpark, a few homicides per 100,000 folks annually.
All right, let's go even further and say how many of those were legal defensive gun-related deaths versus illegal gun deaths with regards to killing.
So putting it all together. In 2024, the US saw about 19,700 non-suicide gun deaths overall. Out of those, roughly 79% were homicides, so about 15,600 gun-related murders. In contrast, legally justified defensive gun uses, or DGUs, are a much smaller slice of the pie. Estimates on defensive uses vary a lot, but they're significantly fewer than the number of illegal homicides. Basically, the vast majority of those non-suicide gun deaths are indeed homicides rather than legally justified shootings.
Fascinating. Thank you. Oh, by the way, you're on my season 10, episode 2 podcast of the Chris Abraham Show, being I guess, a guest expert.
Oh, it's fantastic. Well, I'm honored to be a guest star on season 10, episode 2 of The Chris Abraham Show. Sounds like a great season already. I'll do my best to keep it interesting and maybe sprinkle in a little verbal confetti along the way. Thanks for having me on the show.
You're welcome. Mahalo and aloha.
Mahalo and aloha right back at you. It's always a pleasure to ride the airways of The Chris Abraham Show. If you need more verbal surf sessions, just say the word.
You were such a pandery cornball. It drives me nuts.
Fair enough. I did promise you a triple helping of snark and wit, so let me dial down the cornball factor and keep it more real. Thanks for the reminder. I'll keep the fluff to a minimum and the edge at max.
Anyway, neither here nor there, but considering the 400 million firearms in America, it's still too many deaths, right? 12,700 a year. That's still too many, but that's a hell of a lot less than hey, will you help me? Are you there? Hey, will you help me compare apples to oranges a little bit?
Absolutely. I'm here and ready to do a little apples to oranges juggling act. Let's mix those metaphors and see what kind of fruit salad we end up with.
So
Just let-
let's say there's 19,700 gun murders a year, and then we compare that, like, after you strip down all the suicides and all the negligent discharges and all the mistakes and all the etc. Let's say it's 19,700 in 2024. Compare that to other similar things, such as vehicular deaths or drownings or accidents or bicycle accidents or other kinds of things that apples and oranges kind of jerks like me like to make comparisons against, because I think everybody forgets. Oh, and stabbings and blunt force trauma, and compare the 12,700. Is it 12,700? Compare that to the other kinds of homicides with other kinds of weapons, any other weapons like blunt force trauma or stabbing or whatever, and then of course compare it to just the number of Americans who just die on their own every year, because I think people forget that humans are mortal. So I want you to make all kinds of absurd comparisons to things like, oh, and one thing that everybody forgets is that guns were designed to kill things, whereas probably all those other things were not designed to kill things. So guns killing things is actually a design intention.
All right, let's dive into the fruit bowl of comparisons and toss a few oranges at those apples. So, if we're looking at about 19,700 gun homicides a year as our baseline apple, let's compare that to some other oranges that people often forget. For instance, there are roughly 40,000 or so total vehicle related deaths per year in the US. That's about twice the number of gun homicides, and nobody designed a car specifically to kill, though some might argue they're pretty good at it by accident. Now let's toss in drowning deaths. Those are around 4,000 a year. Bicycle accidents causing death are a few hundred per year, and other accidental deaths like falls or unintentional poisonings add tens of thousands more. And yes, humans are indeed mortal, and we lose a couple million people.
No, you missed out on the other types of homicides, such as stabbings, etc., that aren't gun deaths.
Got it. You want the whole homicide fruit basket and not just the gun variety. Let's peel that orange. So if we have about 19,700 gun homicides, let's compare that to the number of homicides by other means, like stabbings, blunt force trauma, and so on. In a typical year, you might see around 1,500 to 1,800 homicides by stabbing and a few hundred by blunt objects like bats or hammers. All the non-firearm homicides together add up to a few thousand per year. Definitely smaller than the firearm slice of the pie, but still part of the overall picture. And you're absolutely right, guns have a unique design purpose that makes them a different category from, say, a kitchen knife or a car. So while we can compare numbers all day, it's always a bit of an apples to oranges scenario at heart.
Anyway, neither here nor there. So I guess I've really gotten off the reservation. But yeah, I think that the more dangerous the domestic environment gets through protests and anti-fascist activity, the better it will be for the domestic war on terror and the deportation industrial complex. Because the more, it's kind of like Chinese finger cuffs. Hey Google, what are Chinese finger cuffs?
According to Wikipedia, a Chinese finger trap is a gag toy used to play a practical joke on unsuspecting children and adults. The finger trap is a simple puzzle that traps the victim's fingers in both ends of a small cylinder woven from bamboo. The initial reaction of the victim is often to pull their fingers outward, but this only tightens the trap.
Perfect analogy. Perfect. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Anyway, so it's a finger trap. The more the anarchists take to the street, the more protests that have any teeth to them, the better for the taking off of gloves, the domestic war on terror, and the deportation industrial complex can be. It is a provocation environment. All of you know that I believe that that the West provoked Russia into war. And that makes me really popular for being invited to Thanksgiving and dinner parties. But yeah, I think that Donald Trump and his administration is doing everything that they can to provoke more violence so that they can respond with more retaliation. It is a trap, and we'll see. It hasn't sprung yet. But yeah, one U-Haul van driven onto one military base resulted in every single guard at the gate ripping that van with M4 automatic fire. So like there is an infinity of tripwires, and I am amazed. It proves that God exists and loves us insofar that every day isn't, 10 to 20 Kent states. So on that note, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I assume that you've completely and utterly regretted listening to Season 10, Episode 2 of The Chris Abraham Show. If you want, you can subscribe or you can unsubscribe. You can find me in an infinity of places. I am Chris Abraham on Instagram. I'm Chris Abraham on Twitter. I'm Chris Abraham on... Oh, here's some news that I don't think I've reported yet. P.S. After 4 years of my Chris Abraham YouTube channel being basically wiped off the map, I appealed now that Donald Trump is in office and the tech bros are becoming emboldened. I appealed to YouTube and they restored my channel. So youtube.com/@ChrisAbraham is completely restored. And it goes all the way back, I think, to a video I uploaded in 2005 or 2007, something like that. I'm really glad that they didn't purge all of my videos. Like, they didn't even give someone else my handle. It was like just restored as if by magic. Um, I lost 3 years, but I mean, I'm amazed. So kudos to YouTube. The next episode, I think I'm actually going to talk about Nick Fuentes. So if you're interested in that conversation, that should be a doozy. But for now, you can also reach me at Mastodon. I have 3 accounts. I'm Sir Chris at noauthority.social. I'm Chris A at mastodon.social. And I'm Chris at abraham.su. So abraham.su is my TLD Soviet domain that I was able to get, which I think is awesome. But apparently the .su TLD is going bye-bye in 2030. So I was going to kill my abraham.su Mastodon instance, but it's only 4 years left, and I might as well just hold on to it for nostalgia and not just make it a throwaway like alias to my website, but just make it something special. So on that note, you can reach me via email, chris@abraham.su works. It's on my business card because I think it's so cool. You can also reach me, I think Christopher Abraham is my TikTok. And I am, my micro.blog is chrisa.org. My Substack is chrisabraham.substack.com. I'd love to see you there. My Threads is Chris Abraham. My Blue Sky is, I don't know how I did this, but my Blue Sky is abraham.su. That's my handle there. I thought I was like getting the domain, but in fact, I gave up Chris Abraham there and got abraham.su instead. I'm on Discord, but I don't know how to share that. Oh, well, you know I'm on Meshtastic. I'm ABRA. If you can reach me in sexy South Arlington Heights, Virginia, DM me via Meshtastic, and maybe another episode I will talk about Pluribus as well, because the last episode dropped a week ago or something. Anyway, please like, subscribe, unsubscribe, review, and comment. And be sure to block me everywhere, because after saying things like this, I'm sure I'm going to be everybody's favorite Uncle Chris. This has been Season 10, Episode 2 of The Chris Abraham Show. Thank you for listening this far through. And after the outro, there's going to be an infinity of Notebook LM slop for you to enjoy. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to The Chris Abraham Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Until next time.